What's going on, YouTube? And X. Can't forget the X people. Hello, Sherry. How are you doing? The first. The best in the first. Happy friggin' Friday, everyone. Yo, what's up? The Friday Network. Hell yeah. Friday Network for a Friday stream. Am I right? Am I right? Yeah, you know, this is going to be an interesting stream. Throwing a little lo-fi music in the background. I hope everyone's had a good week. It has definitely been an interesting week for me. Been busy during work. Trying to make some time to stay up to date on some things. Movie related, of course. I just woke up, came home at 5 a.m. after watching Spider-Man. Dang, so you got like a late showing? Dedication, Sherry. I'd love to see that. Like the great philosopher Rebecca Black once said, gotta get down on Friday. It's Friday. It's Friday. Gotta get down on Friday. Dang, a 1:30 a.m. showing. Whew. Yeah, I mean, I would have probably had to do the same thing. I mean, I don't know about your. I mean, it sounds like the theaters in your area, Sherry, were probably super booked. I mean, I got these tickets. I want to say 2.5, 3 weeks ago, and I sat second row after like the first main walk, like pathway into the theater, and like on the side. I mean, there were so many seats booked. I mean, I checked multiple times, multiple theaters, and there's some theaters I don't like going to because I'm spoiled. But you know, I was like, wow, this is actually not even that. Getting to the theater, like getting early to the theater, because normally I don't care about watching previews. It's like, oh, the movie says it starts at 7:45. It's more than likely going to start about 8:10, right? 8:15, I think. So I got there at around 7:30. So I'm like, yeah, I'm making some popcorn, you know, and a drink. And the parking lot was so bloody packed that I was like, I don't know where I'm going to park. Finally, I got a parking spot. But man, it was already like 7:55 at that point. So previews already started. I mean, I didn't miss anything inside the movie. Like we sat down and there was like still like the lights were still on. So, you know, I'm like, yeah, we didn't miss much. But they were booked. Plus, my son wanted to see before his friends. Sat on the second to last row in the back. Nice. That's super awesome. How did so let me ask you this year, did your son enjoy it? Because I feel like in my theater there were a lot of kids dressed up as Spider-Man, you know, and I think that's just like one of my buddies I saw it with, he's like, Spider-Man has to be like the world's most popular superhero. And I'm pretty sure I saw a poll. I mean, this poll probably was maybe 10 years ago, but I'm pretty sure that worldwide Spider-Man is the most popular and well-known superhero, which I think it just makes sense. I forget who comes after that, you know, maybe Batman or Superman or something like that. But, yo, what's up, Jax? How you doing, brother? Drac, how you doing, man? Happy Friday, man. Happy Friday. But I mean, there are a lot of people like in like droves, like after the movie was over, like sitting around or standing around rather, like talking about it. And I just like, you know, could hear people talking about the movie. Yeah, which is expected, and I'm sure this movie is going to have insane numbers by the time Monday comes, right? I don't think there's going to be a big drop off. There might be a little drop off, but I think it's going to do well for a while. I think this is probably be the highest grossing Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. I mean, I guess maybe overall Spider-Man movie at that point. I don't know if you would adjust inflation for like the Tobey Maguire movies, but yeah, what up, 40 Viking? How you doing, man? Yeah, so like I wanna talk non-spoilers. Little banner up. We're gonna talk non-spoilers first, and then we'll get into some spoilers. So if you want to stick around for a little bit, 40, totally fine. If not, I understand. He thoroughly enjoyed it coming home. He spoke nonstop about the similarities in the movie and the video games and the comics. 16. Yeah, and that's awesome, you know, and I like Spider-Man. He's not my favorite, you know, superhero, but I've always enjoyed and appreciated him as a character. You know, I have collected, you know, a decent amount of Spider-Man comics. I've obviously watched, you know, grew up watching those old cartoons. You know, on Saturday mornings, along with like the X-Men series, of course. And I mean, I've seen every Spider-Man movie. So, and we're obviously discussing the Tobey Maguire, the first Spider-Man 2002 on Monday for Masculine Mondays. So, but my initial thoughts for this movie, like I didn't want to put any high expectation on this particular movie because I wasn't entirely sure what the overall story was going to be like. You know, I try to stay away from some, you know, rumors and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like that's one of the unfortunate things about being on the internet a lot. And then trying to be, I mean, I'm not even a big content creator that talks about pop culture stuff. And I feel like in some cases, like, yeah, you kind of get ahead of the curve there and to talk about some things about, I mean, what may or may not be happening based on rumors. But I also feel like if you're intending to be a moviegoer, that also to me takes away from the excitement about going to the movies. Like, you know, and I feel like that's going to be this problem with like Doomsday as well. Like there's all these leaks and rumors about what's happening with the story, and that's all everyone's talking about right now. And it's going to remove some of this mystery about going into the theater and watching a movie and thinking, oh, well, what are we actually going to see that's not true, or what's different about the movie. And I feel like, you know, it kind of sucks about trying to cover a lot of pop culture stuff because it's like, well, what are we going to talk about in stream today? Well, let's talk about all these leaks and rumors about Doomsday or about Spider-Man Brand New Day, right? Like who, you know, Sadie Sink is and who is she playing, right? So I won't go into that yet, but it is an unfortunate thing about being so heavily involved in the internet. And so I try to stay away from a lot, and I, you know, was just throwing my own theories about maybe who I'd like to see Sadie Sink play and what may happen. But there again, that's not what they're going to do, of course. But my lower expectation was that I just wanted it to be better than No Way Home and Far From Home. I know a lot of people like No Way Home because of the nostalgia that goes into it. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with nostalgia, but my issue with Tom Holland's Spider-Man was that his character was so reliant on other characters to build up who he is or is trying to be, right? Like when you look at Homecoming, which I think of the three was his best, and this is something against Tom Holland as an actor or anything like that, because at the end of the day, if he's doing the character well, it's really about the direction that's given to him and then the writing that is going into the movie itself, the plot, his character, and the other, you know, surrounding characters. But in Homecoming, right, that's a direct follow-up from his involvement in Captain America Civil War, which is the third movie of a Captain America trilogy that has already had enough build-up with a lot of other characters. And so you're including Spider-Man in there. And again, it was really cool to see Spidey in Civil War, especially because Peter Parker has a fairly large involvement in these Civil War comics, which, you know, a lot of people are very wishy-washy about, and I totally understand about that too. But Homecoming was Peter Parker being so avid about joining the Avengers because he got to be involved in something, and it's you know, being visited by Tony Stark and getting this fancy new suit, right? And I think the best lesson was in that movie for him to, you know, if you rely on the suit and you think the suit makes you, then you don't deserve the suit, right? Like then that's not who you are. You need to figure out who you are without the suit, which he does, obviously, like at the end of the movie when he locks up Vulture. but that was very reliant on Tony Stark as a character. Now, Far From Home was after Avengers Endgame. That was obviously, again, still this direct involvement from Tony Stark and the Avengers, and him being outed by Mysterio. So like, and even at the main plot point was Mysterio getting the glasses that Tony Stark had, right? So it's not so much Peter Parker learning to be Peter Parker in Peter Parker's world in New York and growing up. I mean, they're not even in New York at the, so it's like quite different. But moving into No Way Home, you got the GOAT, Tobey Maguire, with all his aura, and even Andrew Garfield, right? And then you got the villains with Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina, Jamie Foxx. Like, you got all these villains that come into it and are I'm not saying carrying the movie by any means, but then again, you killed off Aunt May too. And I feel like, we talked about this briefly on another stream where it almost seemed like it had maybe been like less than a year since Uncle Ben died in this universe. But we never see Peter Parker grieve or even mention Uncle Ben, right? Like, I mean, they gave with great power comes great responsibility to Aunt May. It's like they totally disregarded who Uncle Ben was to Peter Parker. And that was one of my initial issues with the MCU Spider-Man. But yeah, what's up, Cole? How you doing, brother? Have you seen Spider-Man yet? I still haven't watched the Andrew Garfield movies. No real reason I haven't gotten around to it. I mean, Andrew Garfield is a good Spider-Man, but those movies just aren't good. And I think Andrew Garfield was great in No Way Home, though, too. But either my sons are clocking for this one. I might just wait for streaming. Yeah, I mean, that's understandable. Followed by Denzel Washington, 1990 equals Spider-Man, Brand New Day. That's an interesting comparison, Maverick. When the rumors about Sadie came out, I wanted it to be Mayday Parker from Another Reality. Yeah, I mean, like, I also wanted her to be the actual Mary Jane Watson. I thought, because of the incursions that are going to be happening, because this is taking place right before Doomsday, that there's another actual Mary Jane Watson there, and with red hair, canonically accurate, and that something might happen to Zendaya as Mary Jane, or sorry, not Mary Jane, MJ, Michelle, right? She also forgot who he was because of the spell. And, the spell worked. So I thought maybe they're actually going to remove that and get back to the original characters. Sadie Sink could do that. But I'll save my thoughts on that just a little bit longer to discuss non-spoilers. So I think for this movie, this felt, being the fourth movie as well to Spider-Man, and I mean, he's obviously been in, let's see, Homecoming, or Civil War, Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home, Avengers Endgame, briefly at the end, but Infinity War. So that's 6 movies. And now this fourth movie for him specifically. So Tom Holland has been Spider-Man for 7 movies in the MCU, which is a lot. I mean, he's gotten more solo movies than Tobey Maguire did. And granted, Tobey Maguire was in No Way Home. So you could say he's been in 4 Spider-Man movies. But I feel like this is the first movie that Tom Holland actually got to be a better Peter Parker that allowed him to not be connected to any other hero. Like, he's not associated with Tony Stark. He's not associated with Doctor Strange. He's not associated with the Avengers. Like Aunt May is gone. Uncle Ben is gone. He doesn't have a mentor. He doesn't have like a male authority figure to look to gain this advice, to find how he can, better improve himself as Spider-Man and Peter Parker. I want to say some more things, but I'll avoid spoilers again because we're just kind of talking non-spoilers right now. But so I think this allows him to grow better as a character. And one of the things I think the themes in this movie is about evolving. It's about changing. It's about growth. And while I do think it's also about kind of seeing who you have in your circle, or that who you can rely on or call a friend, but I think this is the best Tom Holland Spider-Man. I think this film allows Spider-Man to seem more like Spidey. Like he's active in the streets. He's active in New York. I mean, I really did enjoy a lot of the action in this movie, because there is quite a bit of action in it. But even just like the cinematography, I mean, I had zero problems really with like the effects. I like the new way they just designed his suit to be more functional and seem more like this is an actual suit, like a superhero would wear, because you can like see the ears and like it, the mask comes off easy, and you get to see more of New York, which was nice, because I was literally in New York 3 days ago. So literally walking around Manhattan, for me, I was like, yeah, like as I'm there walking through Manhattan, I'm like, yeah, I could totally literally see Spider-Man, because there was obviously advertisements all over the place in New York too. But I could totally see Spidey, slinging through the streets. Where would I rank this among all Spider-Man movies? I said this in a post that Kata mentioned, Khalil Too Short. I would put this number 3 at all-time Spider-Man movies. So I would put Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 1 ahead of this, easy. But I do think this is the best Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. I think I would rate Andrew Garfield's movies a bit lower. I mean, I don't know. I'd say I'd probably put Homecoming after this one. I will put Nicholas Hammond Spider-Man over Holland. I mean, yeah, like not getting involved in like the other renditions like comics or even cartoons. I mean, like the Spider-Man cartoon is goated. You know what I'm saying? Like that. The Spider-Man cartoon is hilarious, hilariously good. And it's a much better display of who Spider-Man is, of course. But yeah, I mean, I'd be curious if you do watch this, Cole, like on streaming. I understand if you don't want to go to the movies and see it, but I'd be kind of curious to see what people have to say. Like, what about Electric Company Spider-Man? I don't know. Like there's been some comic runs that have been really interesting too. One of the things that I feel like this universe of Spider-Man is missing is there's no J. Jonah Jameson, right? Like he hasn't yet gone to the Daily Bugle. Like there's an aspect of what has always encompassed Spider-Man is missing. Now, I think there's room for that, right? Like if this is starting a new trilogy, I feel like we could probably see that in this next movie because of things that have happened in this movie. And I'm sure that things are being set up because of Doomsday and Secret Wars, right? Kind of like someone like J. Jonah Jameson could see the things that took place in this movie and then literally say Spider-Man is a menace and should be locked up in the what was it, the damage control building that had all the other villains in it, like Scorpion and Tombstone and Boomerang, right? Like, that's exactly what someone like J. Jonah Jameson could say. Japanese TV series, I mean, that's just pure gold comedy. 1980 Spider-Man, Spider-Man His Amazing Friends, and the 6-7 are my go-to. Yeah, like, you know, if I'm feeling nostalgic, I would go to, you know, the old cartoons instead. Or like the, you know, Tobey Maguire movies too. But like I said, I don't think this is a bad like Tom Holland movie. I think this is probably his best Spider-Man movie. I like the fact that he feels alone. I like the fact that he's trying to be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And we'll get into some spoilers because I mean, like, overall, like, it's not a perfect film, right? Like, I would never ever say this is like a 10 out of 10. I would say I'm still trying to figure out how I would rate this, like, on a scale from 1 to 10. Man, I don't know. I'm still trying to think about it, and this is like my first time like talking about it to folks. But I mean, some friends that I saw it with last night were like, "Oh, this is like an 8 out of 10 for me," and I'm like, I could see why. You know, I haven't looked online at all yet to see again what sort of ratings they've been having, which I'm kind of, you know, curious. And we're not going to go to Rotten Tomatoes. We could go to Rotten Tomatoes because obviously it's hilarious, but even I'm looking at IMDb right now. Well, I'll just share my screen for that. Let's see. Hang on. So an 8.3 is what is being shown on Spider-Man Brand New Day for, let's see here. A lot of 10s, of course. And I'm not surprised. And again, whether we want to say these are bots or not, it's whatever. But, you know, there's still a lot that I feel like are maybe 7 and 8s. Obviously, there's quite a few people who did not like this whatsoever. I don't know if there's any comments, which I'd be kind of curious to see. Let's look at some comments. I want to try and find some. Let's go to like some like 1-star ratings. Worst Spider-Man movie I've ever watched. So disappointing after watching The Odyssey from Hollywood. Whoa. The Odyssey was disappointing. So you're going to listen. I for the record, this movie to me was far better than The Odyssey. This movie was far better than The Odyssey. I'd rather watch this movie anytime over The Odyssey. Worst usage of webs? I don't even know what that means. Because I mean, this person can't even type correctly. That is why my review is long. This is not a long review, brother. This is, I would say this is a troll ass review. 2 hours of a man being sad in spandex. I don't want to show spoilers if there are spoilers here, but 4 years after Peter Parker deleted himself from everyone's memory, Marvel has produced a film built on the same principle. It would very much be like if you forgot everyone that came before, including the parts you paid for. The premise is a magic trick performed with the house lights on. Peter's a lonely, anonymous crime fighter in the city that doesn't know him. Instead of the movie mistakes for tragedy when it's really just bookkeeping. The last film erases relationships This one spends 2 hours mournfully staring at the hole and calling it depth. Grief requires something to have been lost. What's been lost here is the continuity, and no amount of Tom Holland doing his wounded spaniel face turns the franchise reset into a wound. The flaws itemized, a villain who apologizes for existing. City Sink is handed antagonist with such an honorable, sympathetic motivation that the climactic confrontation curdles into a group hug. Conflict requires someone to be wrong. Marvel has apparently decided that's impolite. The Punisher, as a buddy comedy sidekick, Frank Castle, a man defined by his refusal to be redeemed, is repurposed into a Lonely Hearts Club pal, so 2 IPs can share a poster. The Hulk turns up not because the story needs him, because the spreadsheet does. Teases for New Avengers, teases for the X-Men, a movie ostensibly about a man who, with nobody left, can stop introducing you to people you'll meet in 2028. It's a film about isolation that is contractually forbidden from being alone. Celebrity mistaken for maturity. Everyone keeps calling this film The Empire Strikes Back of Spider-Man films. That's a stretch. I would never call it that. Empire earned its darkness by losing. This one earned its darkness by removing the color game and having Peter sit in a chair. The total whiplash, torture, blood, automatic gunfire. The action is generally well staged, which is the coolest part. Destin Daniel Cretton clearly knows how to shoot a body moving through space, and he's been handed a script that keeps stopping the movement to explain its feelings. Somewhere in here is a small, sad, good film about a man who can't let anyone close. Marvel found it, admired it, and then bolted the franchise onto its back until it stopped breathing. So I'll say this is a pretty good breakdown of what happens. Now, granted, I understand like that's more so like it sounds like a disappointed tone. But as a response, obviously like if we're going to get into spoilers here, which maybe it is time, we're about 28 into the stream. But there are things about the other characters that I don't like. And like I said, I'll reiterate this. I like the fact that Spider-Man is trying to find himself, and I don't know if this was the intent. This was just my thought. The idea for deleting himself from people's memories, as this user states, is there a way of starting fresh for Peter Parker that, again, he's not reliant on really anyone else? Like he's trying to figure it out himself. He's trying to learn and grow by himself. And he should, right? That's how other Spider-Mans have done it. You know, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man had to learn and grow by himself without Uncle Ben. I mean, sure, he had Aunt May still, but he relied on learning and going through life's experiences. And obviously he had Harry and MJ as well, as friends to learn from. And I guess in Spider-Man 2 you could say Alfred and Merlina, so Doc Ock to a certain extent, but he was also a villain, right? So but for the sake of this portrayal from Spider-Man into Tom Holland's rendition in this 4th movie, I do like it better than the other 3. But right, like he is lonely, and obviously he is anonymous, because the city obviously needed to forget that Mysterio outed him as Peter Parker, which at that point he's not anonymous, you know, and he has to be, which again, I think that might have, they shoehorned him in a position that he never should have been in the first place, which again, it was one of my biggest issues with Far From Home and like what Mysterio does. But he does help out the police force a lot, and it, again, is fighting crimes, and the police let him do his thing. They're not really like, you know, anti-vigilante. Even when Spider-Man took a Megatron in issue 3 of the Transformers, that didn't last as he tried to spin Megatron up in his web and then Megatron tore it like paper. Right. Like, I mean, like, Spider-Man's web is only so strong. It's more so Spidey's actual, physical strength that he has. I mean, and yeah, it's a transformer, right? A giant machine that has strength too. What up, Mad Dog? Yeah, dude, let me know. I'm gonna put a new banner up to say we're talking spoilers. So, yo, what's up, Jacob? How you doing, brother? Happy Friday. Mahler had a take on how bad the script was. Well, I mean, I haven't seen anything from anybody else. I haven't seen. I've seen a couple tweets from like maybe, trying to think, like Quarter Black Garrett. As I haven't seen anything from like Nerdrotic, Mahler, like, I haven't seen a lot of other reviews, which I'm sure people are going to talk about. Like, I'm sure like Niat folks are going to talk about it tonight. I'm sure FNT is going to be all about Spider-Man today, right? So, and I'm sure like, Drinker might talk about it next week in Open Bar. But I put a post out there saying that this is going to be the next movie that has such a divisive take between people. And I feel like that is the trend. That is the trend moving forward. There are so many movies that come out now that have a divisive take based on people who like it and people who don't. And I think at the end of the day, right, like it's fine. I don't know how, I don't know what, what people are going to rate this moving forward, but, like, I think when Doomsday comes out, it's gonna be the same thing. When Dune 3 comes out, it's gonna be the same thing. Like, I think it's hard to find a movie these days that, it happened with He-Man, right? Masters of the Universe. Like, when I was on Open Bar, there's like 7 of us, I think 6 or 7 of us. We were all in the same consensus that we enjoyed the movie. We realized it was pro-masculinity. There were people who said, no, it wasn't. And I'm like, yes, it is. As someone who, talks a lot about masculinity on a weekly basis, I can assure you it is. But people said it was like a terrible film. And I'm like, you guys, we're not going to get too into it, but that's another example of another movie that had a split between takes. I was on Open Bar last night. He didn't hold back. Yeah, I didn't have a chance to watch Open Bar yesterday, and I saw they were going to be discussing it, so I was like, I'm not going to tune in because I don't want to go into the movie that I'm seeing like in 3 hours and have any sort of like distorted thoughts. But I'll probably see what people say over the next week. I probably won't be on any other streams talking about it. It's just sort of my expectation, and that's fine. I don't know how much I'll even engage on it past this stream here. I might comment on a couple things, but it is hard to really express enough without leaving like a super long text of some kind, or maybe we might talk about it Monday night after talking about the Spider-Man 2002 movie, but I don't know why they leave out the greater MCU movies. A simple 5-second scene of Peter in his apartment looking at a photo of him and Stark, but Peter isn't there saying. But see, I don't think they need that, Mad Dog. I don't want that in Spider-Man. We need to stop having Peter Parker rely on Tony Stark. No, I disagree, man. Like the fact that Bruce Banner. Hold on, I'll read you the next one. We're trying to figure out the mutation. I don't know about a callback because Spider-Man had no idea about Ultron. I think Spider-Man and Peter Parker knew that Bruce Banner is an expert in biochemistry because of the gamma radiation. So, but I do think with Bruce, again, like as this reviewer says, like, here, yeah, it's just, not because the story needs him, but because the spreadsheet does. I mean, that's one way of looking at it, but at the same time, Bruce Banner's involvement in this movie was purely to give the idea to Peter about having an inhibitor chip that could suppress who he is. But even Bruce Banner goes, maybe, which I think is a little contradictory to him as the Hulk, because there's two personalities that are trying to vie for themselves in the body. But you do see the line from which we're getting into spoilers here, so maybe I'll update my banner. But you do see Bruce Banner say, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't remember the exact words, but what if this is who you were meant to be, right? Like, why suppress who you're supposed to be, or why suppress who you're supposed to evolve into, to become, right? Like, if you're supposed to be better than you are, why would you stop and refrain from doing so? And now we're going to discuss some spoilers. You hate the way they go down this path of the way mutants are introduced in an inhibitor blocking them. What backstory are you referring to? I mean, they had they had like inhibitor collars in X-Men. They had X-Men in the cartoons. That's nothing new. Now, the way mutants are introduced, I have an issue with. I have an issue with the way Jean Grey is introduced in this. But the inhibitor part, it's fine to me. Yeah, what up, Isaac? I'm gonna wait to stream it. Never a huge fan of Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I hear you. I mean, like, I'll always love Toby, but I do think this is the best Tom Holland Spider-Man movie out of the four. All right, later, 40. I'll catch you later, man. Tired of this non-villain bad guys giving me a bad guy for once. I mean, we did get a bad guy, Vulture. Vulture was a villain. Mysterio was a villain. We had multiple villains in No Way Home. The whole, like, what was it? Electro, Rhino, Doc Ock, Green Goblin was back, right? Now, a new villain. I mean, Scorpion is in this movie. I mean, there's an array of villains in this movie, but they're all, I mean, you've got Boomerang, you've got Tarantula, you've got Tombstone, you've got Ramrod, you've got Scorpion, yeah, you've got the Hand. So, like, I mean, those are all bad guys that are villains technically, and have fought against Spider-Man in comics. So those are all bad guys. Look at some of the higher stars. Let's go look at what's maybe people said like 8 stars. Without needing to be bigger scale, the movie finds the Spider-Man that Tom Holland was missing. Who would have thought that? And after No Way Home, the best course of action would be to scale things back. Brand New Day works precisely because it understands that this Peter Parker didn't need another multiverse, but rather time to exist on its own. And I will agree. This, like, we needed a Spider-Man movie that existed on its own. And that was my whole point. The Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home, it is not Spider-Man on his own. It purely resides on other characters from other movies to help carry his own weight. Tony Stark, the Avengers, Doctor Strange, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Mans as well, their own villains, right? Like, Tom Holland didn't have his own villain in No Way Home. The villains in No Way Home are all from other Spider-Man movies. Marvel is an IP that is a big deal for me since back in the day when I collected the comics. So breaking the lore is kind of the same to me, like breaking the Lord of the Rings studio. Right? Yeah. And like, if we're talking, like one of my best friends is like arguably one of the biggest Spider-Man fans I know, and he knows that lore from front to back. And he and I like have barely talked about it this morning, you know. But I mean, from the start, literally from the start of Spider-Man in the MCU, was like, you knew that this lore is not going to be the same at all. So it's like, don't expect to have anything that's primarily accurate. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there might be some things, but MCU has broken my heart one too many times to get a free pass anymore. I mean, it's fine. Yeah, it's understandable. I'm not talking about the inhibitor. I'm like saying there's something going to happen where they break and now these moons are introduced. I want the discrimination backstory for everyone. Well, I mean, we're going to get that after Secret Wars. Kevin Feige's already said like the focus going forward is X-Men. But this is more introduction, right? Now, again, I won't disagree and say the way they've introduced Jean Grey was great. I didn't really like that. I don't think I have a problem with Sadie Sink being Jean Grey, like a young Jean Grey, because I think that's the idea. Like, and people might be too harsh on this, but I'm like, but you got to think about the bigger picture here, right? If the idea is to expand and work on these MCU X-Men movies moving forward, so post, 2027 Secret Wars, so going into 2028 and beyond, like, she's going to get older. They're going to start to grow more. If they're going to reestablish like the connection about having a younger X-Men team start at the, mansion of gifted youngsters with Professor X and rebuild that whole X-Men team up from the ground, like, yeah, they're going to be unstable, right? They're going to have to learn how to control their powers. They have to learn to control their emotions and really start to kind of go from there. So, I mean, I expect more backstory to come. But this isn't a movie about X-Men or mutant backstories, right? This is an introduction to her. I mean, but that's an already established X-Men team, right? That's already an established Famke Janssen, Jean Grey. And it's fine, But I mean, Jean Grey is, dude, that's an accurate version, like, of Jean Grey is 5'6" in the comics. She's not tall. And I think, let's see, Sadie Sink is 5'3", so she is a bit shorter than that. But I mean, look, Tom Cruise is like 5'5". But yet they make him look taller in the movies because they have to make him look taller. So I don't think height's going to really matter that much. I mean, shit. Look at Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman's too tall to play Wolverine, but he did a good job. What up, Jamma? How you doing, man? But let's see, I wanted to keep reading this. It's great to finally see Tom Holland as a more urban, independent Spider-Man who's truly connected to New York. And that's what I was saying. This felt like the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man who was actually slinging through the streets of New York. You got to see more of New York. You get to see him catching bad guys. And again, a lot of the villains that are just like the ones you see in the comics. And We didn't get to see that in other Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, which is my issues with the other Spider-Man movies. This film makes better use of his powers, delivers great action scenes, and finds plenty of emotion in the loneliness of someone who's lost everything but still chooses to help people. I mean, that's accurate, though. That's accurate. Not everything works. I also agree. Again, this is not a perfect film. Not a perfect film. And because, yes, there are a lot of additional characters, yeah, some ideas are less half-baked, and the third act drags on longer than it should. I totally agree to that. There's at one point I was like, surely the film's going to end right here. And I'm like, it kept going. I'm like, well, look at my phone. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, this has been going on for a long time. So, like, the third act probably could have been maybe redone, shortened a bit, too. Still, it's been a long time since Marvel, since the Marvel movies seemed so interested in its own protagonist for the first time. I felt this version wasn't living in the shadow of Tony. Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. The first time we're not living in the shadow of Tony Stark or the Avengers or the multiverse. That's why this is the best Tom Holland, Peter Parker / Spider-Man movie. Because it feels like it's finally on its own limbs. Its own Spidey legs. It was Peter Parker trying to figure out how to move forward. And it's exactly. I totally agree with this because we never had something that allowed Tom Holland to be Spider-Man. It was like, be Tony Stark's sidekick / Avengers Initiative buddy, right? No, that's not who Spider-Man is. Spider-Man was not a part of the Avengers. He, like, you know, I mean, kind of he was at certain points, but like he was his own character. He didn't rely on Tony Stark while being in the Avengers. I mean, it's funny you like the. I mean, I've seen some anti-Punisher stuff. Like Vex was saying she hated the Punisher stuff because it felt like a buddy cop, like, you know, him crying at the end. Which, I mean, though it's not like he's sobbing, right? Like he had like a tear, and I think that was like guilt that he was experiencing. Like he's glad, like he didn't kill someone else that he kind of liked, you know, like he had, I think it's like he had respect for, like, he even says like, you know, like what Peter Parker or what Spider-Man's doing is very brave, right? And so if he would have killed Spider-Man, like that would have been, you know, a big thing on his conscience. I was not expecting to see Daredevil in this, though. Which I'm glad we didn't see Daredevil, because again, that we're adding too many characters. There were a lot of characters as it was. The hand is dismantled. The Hand was basically what, trying to find their place. Like the Hand, I don't even think should have been in it, really. Like, granted, cool ass fight scene with them, right? But them just being another bad guy, you know, group, they didn't have a leader. But the introduction of Jean Grey, Goth will always be my Punisher. Hell yeah. If his independence is what makes this Spider-Man flick the best one with Holland, doesn't that speak more to how weak the other ones were than to this one being great? Yeah, dude, that's what I'm saying. I think the other Spider-Man movies are a lot weaker. Like, of the three, Homecoming is the best of the three because we get a much better villain. And we get a better story of him being a teenager. But because, again, we're living in the shadow of Tony Stark, and we don't need that. Right? Like, finally, we get some independence here with Spider-Man. That's why I think this one's better. But I think people like the Homecoming because of having a better villain and having Michael Keaton as that villain. But even like Jake Gyllenhaal, like, again, Jake's a great actor. I don't like the way Mysterio was portrayed in that movie. Everything else about that movie. Again, still living in Tony Stark's shadow in that movie, even though he's dead in the MCU. And then the third movie, No Way Home, is just being in the shadow of the effects of the Avengers, being in the shadow of Tobey Maguire, being in the shadow of Andrew Garfield, their Spider-Man, being in the shadow of their villains that he's now having to face. This is the issue with the MCU, in my opinion. It's gotten so big when things happen, you question why other people aren't involved. Yeah, like Black Widow being in this was unnecessary. It really was. Like, that felt forced to me to promote and connect the new Avengers that are going into Secret Wars or Doomsday, right? Because it's also weird too in the post-credit scene with the Spidey tracker, and it shows him off like in space. And I'm like, yeah, thinking about it, I don't remember seeing Tom Holland's chair when they were showing all the chairs, and I don't remember seeing any leaks about him being in Doomsday. So like, is Tom Holland's Spider-Man like completely like vanished from this timeline? Yo, what's up? What's up, Rossi? Thank you for the gifty, man. And you hit Mad Dog. Look at that. Appreciate you, brother. Well, remember, Doctor Strange is off in the distant somewhere else with Clea. So it makes sense why Strange isn't there. At least for now. I mean, again, we may see him. And again, if they're going off of the comics from Secret Wars, Stephen Strange is literally like Doctor Doom or God Emperor Doom's like right-hand man. So I feel like at that point they might stay true to that, but yeah, so the Jean Grey situation, right? So this is heavy spoiler, but as Spider-Man is, discovering that the bad guys are like, there's like something happening with them. Like people are now talking to him in a different manner, and they're doing these jumps, which they call it. So it's like kind of like, this person will go to that person, or something like, telepathically will jump from person to person. It tries to jump into Peter's mind, but he repels it. But even with Scorpion, like it happens to him, happens to like random guards. And I'm like, what Spider-Man villain had some sort of telepathy? And I was like, is this how we're going to introduce Jean Grey? But why would she be attacking Spider-Man? Like, Jean and Spider-Man never had any beef. So I was a little, a little skeptical as to what was going to happen. And then, of course, you see her in the car, and I'm like, oh, yeah, no, she's like a young-ish teenager that is going through some emotions right now. And then you find out, like, Jean Grey had a sister, and like her sister's dead. And so she's trying to find out, well, she's trying to figure out if her sister's alive, I should say. But it's a little bit different. Like, yes, she had a sister, but it was not the way it was explained in this movie. So again, that was a bit of an issue that I had with Jean Grey. I'm like, wait a second. So number one, you're introducing, it's heavy spoilers, but you're introducing Sarah, her older sister, but also, you know, had kids, was older. So it was very interesting to see kind of like how they, let's see here. I'm trying to see how much older she was. I don't remember if the comics ever stated that. But canonically in Earth 616, she was married, Sarah Gray Bailey. She was married with children. Let's see here. But yeah, in the comics, Sarah had been murdered by mutant-hating fanatics. But she had kids. And then the Shi'ar Death Commandos slaughtered all the remaining Grey relatives with the exception of Marvel Girl and Cable. So, obviously a lot different than what they were going to do here. But, what up, Blue? Yeah, it's YouTube being YouTube, man. Even with the 6 and 7 series, Peter had to mature with the villains he had to deal with. Even with some of the silliness of the cartoon, there was real consequences. Yeah, and I feel like again we're finally kind of getting to that point of you know, Tom Holland having to get with some experience consequences, like by himself, right? So. Sorry, I'm just replying to a message. What up, Hail Nerd Slap? How you doing, brother? Exporting spoilers over on Kick. No worries, man. Appreciate it. I enjoyed the movie, but just wasn't anything to me. I'd rewatch Homecoming and No Way Home before this. House of the Dragon pissed you off? Yeah, I mean, I'm still watching X-Men 97. We obviously got 2 more episodes of House of the Dragon before that's over. I am extremely skeptical about Ted Lasso. Extremely skeptical about Ted Lasso. So we shall see how that works. What's up, Rebel Rose? How you doing, girly? Yeah, I'm not a fan of how Jean was introduced though, because it's sort of like, again, this is where you see the partnership from Marvel and Sony and them like trying to ramp up the introduction of certain characters for the larger and expanding MCU, where, you know, I'd say for the sake of have mutants existed this entire time in the realm of Spider-Man, right? Because it's sort of like the same thing. Well, why did we never see Eddie Brock in Spider-Man? Is it because we haven't gotten to the Daily Bugle yet? Maybe. Could we see that potentially? Maybe. I think Tom Holland said he would like to see him get the symbiote at some point, which I imagine it has to happen. Like, I feel like if Tom Holland's Spider-Man never works the Daily Bugle, if we never see J. Jonah Jameson, which again, we need to see J.K. Simmons reprise his role. But if we never see that happen and him get the symbiote, like, and then yeah, they would miss the mark big time. And I think it would be a even bigger disservice to his character in Spider-Man. What's up, Shield Ball? How you doing, man? I see Spider-Man on Saturday. Hell yeah. Let me know what you think, man. I hear the Ted Lasso part, but the show already had woke parts, so I think this is a reboot continuation. Won't be heavy because of that original. So season one of Ted Lasso is fantastic, but seasons 2 and 3, that's when like they get heavy on the woke parts. There's still some good parts in there, but like then they're like, oh, by the way, what's her face? The blonde chick that dated Jamie Tart and Roy Kent. This is now like a lesbian or bisexual. I can't think of her name, but I'm like, that just felt forced. But more on that later. Maybe I'll talk about that. Once the show comes out. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like Jean. Like Jean Grey is not meant to be the antagonist here. Even though the film kind of sets her up to be that, it's more so like, hey, the damage control building and God, what's the guy's name? Bill Metzger. He is technically the boss of damage control, and we really don't. I mean, we know he. So this is the thing. This is a big spoiler too. Like, he's hiding behind this vault, and when Spider-Man confronts Bill Metzger says, "Yeah, she tried to get in my head, and then I remembered one thing, and it was brief, but it was about something." What did he say? Something about Sarah or something along those lines. So Metzger says that he has a memory of when Jean got into his head, but then when Peter's talking to MJ, MJ's like, "Yeah, like I have no memory like whatsoever of when she was in my head. Like it was completely blank." And so Peter realizes, oh my God, he lied, but can't find him anywhere. So there's an open-ended piece in this movie about what Metzger is hiding in damage control. And I'm like, why wouldn't you just, speed up, maybe redo a bit from maybe introducing Jean Grey a little bit earlier, but making this Metzger guy out to be a bigger villain. Like, so I do think there was a bit of a missed opportunity for making Metzger be an actual villain, because like, technically he's really not. It's like, okay, he might not be a villain because he locks up villains, but at the same time, as Gene points out, like, oh, isn't it interesting how the damage control soldiers have weapons that can defeat Spider-Man. Like when Spider-Man shoots his webs at the damage control guns, the guns completely evaporate his webbing. And that's the part where he realizes, I need to let go of myself and grow and evolve. And so that's when he evolves into the greater arachnid part of his DNA and is now a lot stronger. So he kind of like levels up in the movie and is actually now shooting organic webbing that now is defeating them. He's obviously like he got stronger, but so did Jean Grey. Obviously, Jean Grey is an insanely strong mutant, but yeah, I don't like the fact that they kind of made her out to be a bad guy. Most of the time, it feels like MCU writers just read different Cliff Notes versions of lore and said, "Okay, we're good." Yeah. That's what I'm saying, man. Like, I don't think Feige really had um, this idea of what to do past Endgame. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to talk crap about the writers because it's hard to make an adaptation, especially within an already created world in the MCU. I think Feige and Top Guns could be smarter. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I was saying. I think Feige lost the plot a while ago. Which again, not super surprised of it. I think for the sake of having too many ongoing projects that aren't truly connected with one another presents a lot of problems. Like it got messy, right? And it's one thing if you give other directors that are doing other movies like an idea of like, okay, so this is in the realm of how everything's going to be connected. Like he's supposed to be the mastermind, and how all these characters are going to bounce back and forth and have like, the interconnectivity of everything. But it's sort of like they forgot about certain aspects, or like how things are going to tie in. And like, I think the other thing too, it's like forgetting that maybe certain characters need their own standalone movies to truly feel like they're standing alone. Well, again, I agree that like this Spider-Man movie feels like it finally has some independence. And, making it, because it's sort of like if you're reading a comic book and as you're reading a comic book, you're like, oh, this character popped up in here. It's a cameo. Right? Like Spider-Man's trying to stop a crime. Guess what? Frank Castle's also trying to stop a crime because there's something that Frank Castle's after that, Spider-Man is also discovering now, and now they're sort of quote unquote working together. Now, I do think that Frank Castle in this movie, like, he is very buddy to him, which, I mean, this is again the first time we've ever seen them interact in the MCU, which is very different than him interacting with Daredevil. Like, I mean, he's very much this like controlled destruction. I don't think he's chaotic, even though I said that in a Discord. But thinking about it more, like, he is trying to be this controlled type of destruction here. But I'm trying to see what some of the users are saying. I don't want to read 10s because I don't think it's a 10 out of 10 movie. I want to see some like mid-level. Let's see here. Young hero must navigate a life of complete isolation. Yes. Dazzling visuals, which I agree. Great. Fight sequences were good. Productions were good. Yeah, and I think too, like this Spider-Man was very, very modern, right? Like, I mean, just the sheer fact of having Spider-Man be involved in social media, like, which again, it's kind of to be expected. Right? Like thinking about we never really saw that kind of stuff in the old cartoons. Comics of like later comics kind of started to incorporate it, but we never saw that in either other Spider-Man movies, which makes sense. MCU should not include everyone, but have departments which they talked about. Supernatural side, Midnight Suns, mutant drama, normal hero stuff. Yeah, I mean, like there has to be sections of the characters, right? Because like, you know, not every character in the comics has interacted with each other too. So, I mean, it would make sense to have some things that are completely separate from another, like with the characters. So, they tried to intertwine it and it hasn't worked well. Lately, I was 9 when Iron Man came out, 20 when Endgame came out. It's my childhood, and I just feel like it's not impactful or anything anymore. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting sort of comparison compared to like, you know, my growing up compared to other people, right? So, let's look at some other Spider-Man ratings. Actually, you know what? I want to go drop a rating. Let's go like 7-star ratings. And so you finally gives Peter Parker room to hurt. Planning to skip the movie. Glad I saw it. Easily the darkest mature Spider-Man film in the MCU. I mean, yes. But what is that really saying? And yeah, I agree. Peter is truly anonymous. He doesn't have any friends or family. The person he ends up talking to the most in the film is DeWolf, who's she's the head of the police department or whatever. I can't think of the actress's name, but she's been in quite a bit. People would probably recognize her. Yeah, the film does, I agree, focused on Peter's emotional state. I mean, you do get anonymity, grief, identity, rebuilding your life. Yeah, this person said Sadie Sink is especially impressive. And Tremel Tillman is Bill Metzger, plays the quote unquote bad guy in Damage Control. Yeah, I mean, just again, thinking more about Jean Grey, like in Sadie Sink, I don't think she's bad, but again, it's the capacity that we see her in being someone who is learning, which I'm assuming she's meant to be the same age as Peter. So we're talking, this is probably like an 18-year-old, maybe 19-year-old Jean Grey. I mean, they really don't know much about how old she is at this point. And then hold on, let me think. I want to look up something real quick. So, okay. In the comics, the original comics, right? 1963 with Cyclops, Beast, Iceman, and Angel, the original team of X-Men. She's about 16 to 17 years old when she joined Professor X and was known as Marvel Girl, right? I don't know if she could be about that age in this movie. And again, I don't know if that's what they're setting up, right? Having a young Jean Grey join in when the X-Men movie starts in, let's just say 2028, where you have, you know, a young Beast with no fur. You have Angel, you have, you know, non-gay Bobby Drake, and you have Cyclops. And then that's the run. And then you start to establish the relationship between Jean Grey and Cyclops at that young age. They could be doing that. I would give them more credit if that's what they end up going with. But again, it's the introduction of having Jean Grey in a Spider-Man movie. It just seems so out of the blue. But if they do have Jean Grey totally join the X-Men and that's what it leads up to, then yeah, I'm down. That's cool. I saw a critique of Spider-Man on TikTok and it made me laugh. He's supposed to be a genius, so why the hell is he broken? Every interpretation made me think like, yeah, why is he just broke? Well, I mean, even in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, right? Like he's trying to get a job for himself at like the Daily Bugle taking pictures. So like, I mean, could he go to like MIT? Absolutely. But then I think he would probably end up failing because he wants to be, and flunking out maybe if he's missing classes because he's out fighting crime. Kind of hard to do. Like no one said being a vigilante is easy, right? Let's see here. I want to finish reading this. Acting is very strong. I didn't mind Zendaya so much in this one. Oddly enough. Ned's character still kind of annoyed me, though. Storytelling is also posh if you don't compare directly to the comic book runs, which, I mean, it's kind of like, omit source material and it's fine. That's the problem, right, with a lot of movies and TV shows. My ongoing issue with the MCU Spider-Man films is that they rarely feel like true solo Spider movies. That sentence I totally agree with because I've been saying that in this stream, is that they've all never felt like it was like a solo Spider-Man movie, and we need that. There are characters from other corners of the Marvel Universe, and I still wish Marvel would make a film focused entirely on Spider-Man, his supporting cast, and his villains without the need for outside collaborations. Yeah, and so like that's one of the things about this movie too, where like we have the Hulk, we have Frank Castle with the Punisher. Did we need them? No, we didn't. Like we probably could have done without the Hulk's involvement. And like cool, it was actually cool, I'll say, to see the Hulk look more truer to scale in this movie. Like he looked bigger in this movie than he had in other movies, for whatever reason. But you could have had Peter trying to still mess with the inhibitor on his own, like based on maybe something that he sees or hears from Ned or even MJ from MIT, or just, again, being smart. Trial and error. That could be part of his growing and learning process. And then just have his supporting cast, right? And then, yes, I totally agree with having a better villain, which, you know, it's kind of hard. And I was thinking about this after the movie last night. I'm like, well, you know, what movie or what villain would have been good to have at this point in time for Peter Parker, for Tom Holland's Spider-Man to have in this point in time? Like Kingpin has already been associated with Daredevil, right? In those seasons. So how do you navigate through his, which you see multiple villains in this one, right? Later, like Shocker's already gone, but you see the Shocker gauntlets from Homecoming. Vulture's locked up. Scorpion's in this movie, but gets locked up again. You know, I could have sworn that was there's like a rumor that Rhino was supposed to be in this movie, but he's not, or he doesn't end up being in this movie. But like it would have been cool to see like Hobgoblin, for example. Like give us a Lizard. You know, I mean, I've been wanting to see Spider-Man go up against Kraven. Not the Aaron, what's his face? The guy who plays the other Kraven movie. Do you think no Happy in this is anything? I know you said no Tony Stark, but Happy was essentially his stepdad. But that's the same thing. Like Happy is related to Tony Stark still. And I feel like if Happy were in this movie, it would just be more Tony or more Peter going to be more Peter going to Happy and being like, God, I wish, you know, Tony had some tech to help me figure this out. You know, like it would still be in the shadow of Tony Stark. Later, Sheba. I'll catch you later, brother. But yes, he did forget him in No Way Home. But you could have Lizard. I'm trying to think who else I could probably have. What other villains would work? I don't know if we would use Electro. We won't see villain. We won't see Venom yet with Eddie Brock. Again, it's hard to like. I mean, there's no Oscorp in this universe, for whatever reason. Probably won't see Carnage. Like I think this just dawned on me. We're talking about the Lizard, right? Dr. Kirk Connors. Like that would have been a good like person for him to go to instead of Bruce Banner, instead of the Hulk, right? And maybe that sets up something later on. But Mr. Nobody. Yeah, honestly, I mean, like I know they did in the video game, like with Mr. Negative. I don't know if they'll ever do that again, but I'm trying to think of like who else. Let me look up at a list here that makes sense. I mean, Sandman, we did see that in Tobey Maguire's. Yeah, we won't see Morbius. I mean, we saw it in the comics, though. You know, we won't see Carnage either because that introduces the, symbiote action there. And then you get into like a bunch of, again, lesser villains, which we do see in the movie here. You know, we do see him locking up and fighting some of these lesser villains. For a second, I thought that's what they were going with when they were swapping like from like person to person with mind control. I was like, oh, damn, are we getting Mr. Negative in this? Nope, just kidding. It's Jean Grey. And I was like, it's a missed opportunity. But I feel like we definitely need to see Eddie Brock in the next Spider-Man movie. And we need to see J. Jonah Jameson. We need to see him going into the Daily Bugle. We need that in a Spider-Man movie. Otherwise, like, they've fallen off so much. Yeah, Tombstone was in this movie, though, too. What's up, Beans? Yeah, villain montages is always an interesting thing, which it's like saying, yeah, we have villains, but also the cop out for not like expanding upon the villains. Yeah, I agree with this one. Spider-Man, brand new day, great visuals and cast, but lacks a real Spidey villain. Enjoyed it, but not as much as I wanted to. Since this movie is called Spider-Man Brand New Day, I was hoping for a fresh start to Peter Parker's story. However, it's still very much caught up in the tangled web of the MCU. with multiple character cameos in the various films and streaming series. So we need to know some backstories to fully understand what's going on. Darker tone than the previous films. Nevertheless, it's got some great web-slinging action, good acting, and intimidating villain. And I mean, yeah, that's. And I haven't really given an official rating yet, but I was, somewhere around like a 7 because it's good, but not perfect. A good but disappointing ride. Let's see what this. Damn it! Let's see what the spoiler. Mixed bag. Let's see. Fans of the games get kick out the movie borrowing some elements in the games. Yeah, some of the action from in the movie were definitely things that were like taken out of the movie. Sorry, I'm replying to an email or a message. Villain falls flat. I agree. Antagonist lacks a medicine depth because it's Jean Grey. It's interesting. I'm seeing a lot of back and forth from Punisher being involved. Movie with real simple strengths, strong acting, clever game inspired touches, held back by a weak villain. Let's call it what it is, shall we? Oh, okay. I'm gonna read through this one. Yeah, what up, Sebrew? How you doing, man? Yeah, we talking spoilers. Dr. Vespian was a great villain from the OG. Yes. Yeah, there's a lot that you could include, right? Even if it was like, we're going to have like 4 different villains in this movie that Spider-Man watched, but they're all going to have ample time. Like that could totally be a thing too, right? I think it did. Then he never gets called a Punisher. Spider-Man always calls him Frank. Which it's like, he should, even like when MJ is there, when Peter asks Frank to watch over her, it's like, who are you? I'm the Punisher. That's Frank. You know what I'm saying? Like that was never mentioned. Let's call it what it is, shall we? Let's be brutally honest about what this movie is. It's a backdoor pilot to set up the X-Men and to give Jean Grey her origin story. Not an origin story, but a small backstory. Cameo invested backdoor to the next big team movies that aren't the Avengers. And to be perfectly honest, that's okay. Well, yes and no. Because having Black Widow in this movie, I think, takes away from the things that Peter Parker could have explored by himself. Like if the idea is that Peter Parker is trying to explore more of himself, then he doesn't need other characters that are trying to explore things for him. But it is obviously a backdoor to set up, oh, hey, remember that movie Thunderbolts? Slash New Avengers. Yeah. Here is Black Widow in a hot tub that you see her shoulders. You don't even see like top of her boobs, man. I was like, terrible. Did Hulk, Punisher, and Dollar Store Black Widow actually move the movie along? And would the movie still happen without them? Absolutely would. Literally just said that, right? Was there any point for Spider-Man to be involved in this at all? Not even remotely. Literally any other character could have been copied and pasted into his place and wouldn't have changed a single thing. Yeah, for the sake of Jean Grey attacking Damage Control, trying to find her sister, it's like it was just so ironic that it was happening in New York, where, lo and behold, Spider-Man is. So what do we get in this Spider-Man movie? We got Mopey Peter, who accepts who he is by the third act, though Peter already accepted who he was, considering that was the point of the final scene in No Way Home. And basically powers up to be Tobey Maguire's Spider level. Yeah, so like, he obviously does get a lot stronger. Which again, he kind of accepts who he is now finally and has organic webbing. So, which there was definitely some sus scenes of the way it kind of squirts out of his suit. I'm like, ugh, hilarious. But a Bruce Banner D plot that makes no sense whatsoever, as Banner and the Hulk finally settled their issues and became one at the beginning of Endgame, but apparently that's not the case anymore, and Hulk is once again a mess to the world. Yeah, talking about the Hulk, so Banner has created a gauntlet, a little device on his arm that prevents him from raging out, which I was like, yeah, he's like Professor Hulk at like the diner when they're discussing time travel. So it's like, what happened to that Hulk? Or is it post Endgame? And I don't even remember what happened in She-Hulk. I don't even consider that canon. But post Endgame, it's like with the effects of the fighting in Endgame, like now bringing Hulk back, to being at war with Bruce Banner. That's not explained at all. Frank Castle C plot where Frank does something, I guess, then it gets turned into a clown. Yeah, Frank Castle in this movie essentially is like, he wants to fight, but Spider-Man basically stops him every time. And it's like, let me do it my way. If I get the shot, I'm gonna shoot and kill Jean Grey. Yeah, Yelena Belova, D plot. Florence Pugh. Sorry. Yeah, good thing of her name. Right. She didn't even need to be in the movie. A B plot with Ned and MJ that legitimately goes nowhere and does nothing but remind the audience that they were friends before Doctor Strange's spell. Right. And I do think that should have been the opportunity for Peter to learn more about how he can navigate things by like talking to them. And trying to discover more about the inhibitor, how he develops it, how he creates it, tests it out, because they're both at MIT and he's not. Series of cameos by Spider-Man, B and C villains that are nothing more than glorified cameos, pretty much. Main plot, there's nothing more than the origin story of the first MCU member of the X-Men. Complete with an ending shot of her traveling to upstate New York. Gee, I wonder where she's going. Yep, I already said that. Where she's, again, gonna... I thought the post-credit scene was going to be Jean Grey stepping out of the cab and seeing the sign that says, School for Gifted Youngsters. And don't be fooled by what the hack Kevin Feige is going on social media saying this movie in no way, shape, or form leads into Avengers Doomsday. It's a standalone movie that doesn't even hint at the next movie. And again, that's perfectly okay. In fact, it's actually preferable. There's nothing wrong with with having the other MCU characters in it, but Feige's lying through his fake teeth when he says that it leads into and helps set up Doomsday. It doesn't. TLDR, this is an X-Men origin story masquerading as a Spider-Man movie. That's one way to look at it. Again, like, I do think the idea of it just being in New York is a coincidence with Spider-Man, right? It's kind of, you know, yeah. Again, I don't like that. That's the way Jean gets introduced, which is, I think, one of my biggest pet peeves about this movie. And it's like, yeah, while granted, there's nothing that, like, there's nothing that leads into Doomsday. There's nothing about this that says, like, oh man, we're gonna get stuff from other Avengers in this movie that are totally like leading into Doomsday. It's like, nope. Aside from the post-credit scene, that's not even like, it's like a spider tracker that's like, oh look, he's in outer space somewhere, but we don't know where. One of my favorite episodes was Home, when he met the girl Susan, had spider powers and senses, and knew that was Peter, and that Peter was Spider-Man. Yeah, and like I like the fact that this Peter Parker actually has, he finally has a real spider sense now, which is nice. Didn't hate the film. Good action, comedy, acting. Felt it was too long, and the cast is bigger than the first Avengers film. Glorified cameos. Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at too. You know. What's up, Evan? How you doing, man? Aren't the majority of MCU heroes in New York though? They are now, yeah. Like the new Avengers are. I mean, technically, Doctor Strange would still be there. But like Daredevil, Frank Castle, obviously. I mean, the Avengers were always in like New York until the West Coast Avengers existed, but it's gonna do $1 billion in a week, but kind of a weak script. Peter has a huge rogues gallery, making Jean the villain I didn't like. I don't know if I would even call her a villain. Like it's like she's just an antagonist that gets in the way and just happens to be there. He did that in She-Hulk, right? With the gauntlet, maybe. I think I don't even remember She-Hulk. I despise that show so much that I don't even remember like the moments of it. Like I remember them like training or whatever it was, and like, but I don't even remember. MCU destroyed the Hulk. It's because Universal has the rights to the movies, so they can do what they want. They also don't want Hulk being a rampage Hulk, which is viewed as toxic masculinity. I mean, he does. He does go on those rampages, and he's like, "Did I hurt anyone? Did I hurt anyone?" You know, it's like, it's fine, brother. You're the Hulk. But yeah, they'll never get the true rights because Universal has it. But yeah, I mean, we do want to see like the OG real Hulk. We do. I think we deserve to see it. Oh, there's things with the $5, man. I think you're giving the writers too much credit. It's more likely they just forgot Professor Hulk happened. Probably. I think you're probably right. Which just, again, this just goes to like Feige not remembering like, oh well, how is this going to happen when there's like actual Professor Hulk or a Bruce Banner as a professor that is using a device that restricts him from being the Hulk. And yet we had the Hulk in the beginning of Endgame that didn't need any sort of gauntlet or device to keep him as Hulk, and they were just sort of like understanding of one another. It is a bit contradictory for them. Part of No Way Home was Toby teaching Tom, we don't kill Goblin, Lizard, Ice. All good men of bad sci-fi to ruin them. Gene is a POS. I mean, like, she's not a killer, you know? Again, that's part of like the rendition I don't like. Doc Ock. Oh, what you're saying? Pardon me, home's teaching we don't kill Goblin. Lizard Ice. Oh, Doc Ock. Yeah. Science ruined those characters. Which basically, Scientology is bad. Scientology has ruined Tom Cruise. There's no way they forgot. I agree. It could be stupid to not explain it, but they knew about it. I mean, maybe, man. Like, they'll never admit to it. They'll never admit to it, though, right? Talking things out is not why I go to see action movies. Bring back punching. It's a movie, not a therapy session. Yeah, and I think with this movie, like, again, if you just would have stuck to the action, like, it would have been fine, right? Like, you just need action movies. Superheroes bring action. It's fine if, like, there's going to be a darker tone. You know, that's okay. But keep the action. Yeah, either New York or LA for Marvel. Oh, dude, no worries about mentioning old Spider-Man. You know, like, I mean, it's a good reference. Yep, East and West Coast Avengers. I don't know if they're going to set up West Coast Avengers. I mean, that would be the idea with, like, White Vision, and they might do that with Vision Quest, but you know, we'll see, right? You're not a killer yet. Tell that the guy who made you walk into a car and get ran over when she minds control Frank. Yeah. Now, maybe the guy didn't die, but he was just hurt. But, like, you know, Blue, I was saying earlier, which I don't know if you have gotten to it yet or said, like this is Jean Grey, who's, like, probably 16, 17 years old. Very emotional. That, you know, has lost her sister. And I'm not saying this is right by any means. I'm just saying this is probably their logic. And probably it's, oh, well, you know, what is she capable of? Is she capable of killing? Well, a mature Jean Grey, or a Jean Grey that goes to Professor X, obviously would not do anything like this. So, I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen people overhype this movie yet. Like, obviously, there's a lot of people who are bashing it, or, like, you know, I'm kind of like in this, like, it's good. It's got problems. I don't think it's a terrible movie, but there are things I like and I dislike about it. But yeah, no real villain. Jean Grey's introduction. The best parts about this movie were, like, the anonymity and the independency that Peter Parker and Spider-Man have. Everything else is just so, you know, felt like forcefully included because of the greater MCU sphere. Um, the way they made her telepathy, though, makes it seem like so strong. How do they make Professor X stronger that he can go past 30 yards, whatever the limit was? Yeah, I mean, that felt weird to me. Which I was like, there's no way they're going to keep it like this. And obviously by the end of the movie, she's like, she's able to control everyone in a 1 kilometer radius, which I'm like, yeah, that seems more like, some powers that Jean Grey could have. But she doesn't know how to control it truly. Obviously, like, because I think people were still aware that it was happening. Right? Like you could see, MJ was like, she had like a tear coming down her eyes, so she was aware of what was happening. I think when we see that same thing happen in the X-Men movies, when like what's her face, Mystique is going to the airport. I forgot what movie it is. Is that Days of Future Past? And Professor X is like, or was that X-Men? Oh god, what X-Men movie was that? I forget. But anyway, he controls like everyone like in the airport, and they just completely like are frozen. So they have no idea what's happening. They're not like, well, that was weird. Like everything's just boom. Time stop. I mean, she should be powerful though. There's no reason for her not to be powerful. That maybe earlier on. I think it's why they're like, oh, well, she can't do it. She'll do it like 30 yards for the time being, but depends. Are they planning to base the MCU X-Men off the Ultimate X-Men series? They did some wild shit there. Could absolutely see that Jean Grey doing all sorts of crazy evil. I mean, maybe. Like, I wonder if that is the case. I mean, we need to see a couple other cameos, and then I think we might know exactly what they're doing, or like pulling from, like X-Men Ultimate. I think the last Jean Grey series I collected was like from like 2017 or whatever it was, like, which is definitely really, really weird. But it could be interesting. Could be interesting if that's if that's the route they go with. I mean, like I said, I think they might have a young Jean Grey because they're trying to establish a young X-Men, and then go with that for like the next 10 years. I don't know how old is. Let me see how old Sadie Sink is right now. Sadie Sink's 24 years old, right? Just turned 24 this year in April. So like, theoretically speaking, she could keep playing this role for the next 10 years, 12 years even, right? So like if the let's say the first X-Men movie is not until 2028 that she's a part of. So like we're going until like 2038. So she'll be 36. Let's say by the end, maybe that she stops playing. I mean, like, she'll still be fine that age playing it. Now, obviously, like what happens with a lot of people that find success in the MCU is that they get picked up, and she already kind of found success from Stranger Things, which is why I'm sure she got this role. So, and then when that always happens, right? It's like, how do you find time to do other things? How is that going to delay other movies? I mean, granted, like if they time it out, right? And again, if you have a master plan, then you can start to incorporate other things. But like my whole thing about this is, if you're going to be focusing a lot on X-Men, and there's will be a lot of X-Men movies that are coming out, whether it's, individual films that, will be tying into more X-Men movies combined, like what happens with the other characters? Like what happens with other Avenger characters? Like, are they just done and retired? Like we've been saying this for years. They might do the Young Avengers. right? With like Kate Bishop, Ant-Man's daughter, right? Like, I mean, that's probably going to happen. And I know a lot of people probably won't care about it, but we can't act like we'd be surprised if it does happen. We're going to get more Spider-Man movies because Tom Holland still stays looking young. He's got a baby face. But yeah, like what happens with like, do we get West Coast Avengers? Apparently, Kevin Feige said Wanda Maximoff's story's done after Vision Quest. I'm like, I don't like what they did to her character. I think she got done dirty. Because Multiverse of Madness was booty. Like, I don't know if we're going to get if we're ever truly going to get a new Captain America, like a new Steve Rogers. Will we ever get? I'll say this. I don't think we ever need to replace Thor. Here's why. I think Chris Hemsworth does the role very well. I think you could keep Thor. And I really, 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 really hope they don't screw his character over here in Doomsday and Secret Wars, because they could essentially give him and make him to be the new Odin. I was just reading this comics, not to go into a super side note or anything like that, but I was just reading some comics about the most powerful version of Thor, and like Phoenix King Thor. Holy crap. We'll never see Phoenix King Thor because that sets up too much. And again, that's something that can only be done in comics. But my God, that would be amazing. We might see Rune King Thor in the movie, and I think at that point he would be more like Odin. So like Chris Hemsworth could still portray Thor as like the older version as he gets older, kind of like, you know, if they could still go the old man Logan route, so like that Hugh Jackman would never have to like be like, I gotta get in shape, like I gotta look jack. It's like, bro, just wear jeans, a leather jacket, and then that's that. It's okay to have the white beard and you know, and look, you know, scruffy, like, because that's what old man Logan is supposed to look like. Now I understand if Hugh Jackman's like, I'm done playing the role, and then someone else can do it, but we know we're gonna get new Cyclops and Storm and whoever else they decide to include. But is Spider-Man 2 the best Spider-Man movie? I would say so, yes. And I'd also say Spider-Man 2002 is also the next best. I haven't seen what some of the other sites have said. Like, let's check out Metacritic. User score for Metacritic for Brand New Day saying 7.8 based on 105 users. We're gonna check it out just because it's hilarious, but Um, let's check out the good old Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know why we're checking out, but we are just for funs and shits and giggles. 98%. I don't give a shit about verified audience. All audience. Holy bro, this is the best one. Holy bro. Yeah. Actually, what was this person? Kyle Smith. While I was in angst and stress, but it's no psychological depth. Sticking to bromides like you're special and be yourself. Being somber is a lot easier than being serious. Yeah. I'm going to stay away from these ratings here, honestly. I have not seen what people has said over at Criticless. Let's check out Criticless. It's right, 2.5 hour movie. It felt longer. It felt like this was like a 2 hour and 45 minute movie, honestly. Okay, so overall audience score is saying 77%. Let's read what some folks over at Criticless have said. I had a lot of fun with this movie. Punisher and Spider steal the show. We need more of that. Let's see if we recognize anyone in here. We might. Oh, Epic Mike. Okay, here we go. Here you go. Let's see what Epic Mike has to say. Brittany is the fourth film was Tom Holland's tenure as Spider-Man. This is also the first time the Wallcrawler has gotten a fourth solo installment in a live-action film. True. This movie serves as a soft reboot of sorts, gone are the Stark suits and unlimited resources in the first three films. Also true. This adding brings Spidey back to the neighborhood and firmly plants him back as the street-level hero. Also very true, as I've said. New York feels like a true character again, and its love for the web-slinger is in full force. Also true, and which I have stated in this here stream. This is also a lot going on in this film, or there's also a lot going on in the film. Also true. Some of it is lackluster, but most of it is good. Most of it is good to great. Okay. This is easily Tom Holland at his best, injecting a ton of heart and enthusiasm into his portrayal of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, which I've said similar things to. A surprising standout is John Bernthal as the Punisher, very much portraying the Frank Castle we know and love, but also slotting well into Spidey's world and with a bit more levity, but still ready to put a bullet where it needs to be. I would argue that, well, Frank, I mean, yes, John Bernthal taps right back into being Frank Castle and Punisher, just like he tapped right back into it when he was playing Frank Castle and Punisher in the Daredevil series with Disney. But he's restricted in what he's able to do. Like, we don't see him actually fighting bad guys. Like when Spider-Man has to go to, like, he's technically fighting the Hulk, Frank Castle shows up and, like, yes, Frank is shooting the Hulk. Guess what? Those bullets are ricocheting right off of him. If anything, he's just annoying the Hulk. And again, the buddy aspect of him, I think people are going to be on the fence about. I think there's, like, we've already seen people, again, like Epic Mike says, slotting well into this movie. I'm sure, like, I don't think, like, Vex, as an example, likes this aspect. Hard to discuss this film in depth without spoilers, so I'll just say this. This is my third favorite Spider-Man film ever. and it earns its spot by honoring the character and telling a fun story that feels more like a comic book than a lot of superhero films that have done in a while. Yeah, I mean, I can agree to that. Let's see who else. I know of Philip Chan from like Geeks and Gamers. I have not watched anything. So he gives it a 7.5 out of 10. Ranks the top Spider-Man movie despite its flaws. Solid choreography by Jackie Chan's stunt team, which I agree. I mean, I would imagine that that Tom Holland and his wife have good chemistry, natural chemistry. They kind of have to, right? Ned's moments, just could be done without. Criticism is that the film feeling like two movies stuck together with the third act having weak pacing. Yes, I agree. Let's see what else we know this short fella right here. Let's check this short fella out, shall we? Mr. Kada gives it an 83%. Wow. All right, Kada, that's kind of high. Let me take a swig. All right. This was by far the best Tom Holland Spider-Man film, and is third for the best live action ones. Action was the best in the series. Acting was a major step as well with Tom. Probably felt like an actual Spider-Man and not Iron Man Jr. Actual consequence with heart in this one. Even the inclusion of the Punisher helped push the central theme of the story, which is not being alone, except in the past, embracing the future. Yep. Even fake MJ roles was more down to earth. I agree. I didn't. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't really hate Zendaya's acting in this one. Her character. Hate's a strong word. I disliked the previous acting in the other movies. And the not cliche happily ever after ending for their characters either. I won't talk much about the villain. But it was another thing that went with the central theme. My biggest complaint is the unresolved Hulk story. Unless that's another angle that goes into the central theme. But regardless, it was a damn good movie held back by the pacing in the middle. The unresolved Hulk angle. Peter creating the very thing that will subjugate mutants. Like, that's a major thing they just brushed over, and the villain not actually being evil trope. I'd recommend it for sure. Good job. Yeah, I want to see someone get into some real spoiler heavy stuff here. Wow. Sevi, 95. Whoa. 95. I think Leon hated the movie. This movie picks up with Peter trying to survive. His day-to-day is a constant loop of work and loneliness. He knows he is struggling, but has something left in the tank. It isn't until he sees MG move on, something is triggered, and that something is evolution in a way. I love the movie. It was a story about Peter growing into Spider-Man and coming to terms with who he is. I absolutely loved it. You spelled loved wrong. Should be L-U-V. I'm kidding. I'm glad you liked the movie that well, Sevi. I feel like Leon probably had the opposite and give it like a 59. Let's see who else I recognize on here. Oh, look who it is. 35. Woof. Mr. Words of Paradise. Spoiler free. This movie is trying to trick you into thinking it's good. Chock full of references. Doesn't disparage our heroic lead. Cameos from other beloved characters. Almost has a phase for MCU vibe. Don't fall for it. Beneath the surface lies a paper thin plot, a story that is only being told to set up future MCU titles, charisma vacuum acting from nearly every actor on screen, unfunny jokes, multiple presented ideas that aren't following through or aren't committed to in any meaningful way, a laughable but predictable twist villain for the moment we first meet him, and worst of all, a complete misunderstanding of Spider-Man as the character in his source material. Well, we knew the source material wasn't going to have an accurate representation the moment he was introduced in the MCU. So why we would expect to have any sort of different expectation is a joke on us. But I will say, and I have not talked to Leon about this yet. It's the first time I'm actually seeing him say anything about this movie. Is a little bit what Sebi said. I think this is him actually growing and experiencing some things that, is different than we've seen. But Tom Holland doesn't feel like Peter Parker. He feels like Tom Holland. And at no point when I was watching the film did I think that's Peter Parker. When he dons the suit, I don't see Spider-Man. I see a guy in the Spider-Man costume. I think a lot of this stems from their refusal to let Peter Parker truly grow up in these MCU iterations. Yes, he's college age now, but nothing meaningful about him growing beyond high school is ever really addressed. The movie really wants us to believe Peter is poor and alone, yet also has Tony Stark level AI technology. Wants us to feel like he's had this long history with Punisher by telling us about it, but another character feels like they are together in the story of out of necessity rather than, hey, comic fans want to see Spider-Man and Punisher to work together in a movie that since it hasn't been done yet. And I think the only reason why they did this is because this has been 4 years, like 4 years have passed. And so like within those 4 years, Frank and Spider-Man have known each other, right? And know of each other. So made even worse with the fact that Punisher's inclusion in this really throws off the tone of the character, since it's a PG-13 movie rather than his rated R series. Or what he did in Daredevil. Hulk is also completely wasted. The scene seems cool in the moment, but without spoilers, when you sit and think about it, it really doesn't make sense. And it was just there for style over substance, right? That's really what this movie is amounts to: style over substance, gratuitous Flash Spider-Man-esque movements and quips, web slinging shots, and visual references to comic covers with no understanding of why those aesthetics work for the character of Spider-Man. Truly was not a fun experience, and will likely never rewatch. I'm sure we'll probably talk about it more on stream. I don't know if we'll talk about it like with other people, but we'll see. Casual reviewer, 75%. Wicked Virtue, 90%. I really enjoyed this movie. I think that this is the best of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, which I agree. It finally feels like he's Peter Parker. The main villain was great. And I love the dynamic between Spider-Man and the Punisher. Dude, I'm telling you guys, I said this earlier. This is going to have a divisive freaking rating amongst the internet. It's going to happen. And groups we all interact with, people we watch and stream with and follow, like, it is going to be a back and forth. I mentioned this earlier. We need actual Eddie Brock. I like Alan Richardson, but comic Eddie is 6'3" and 260 pounds. Dude, I don't think we're even going to see that in this Tom Holland universe. It'd be nice, but because Tom is so small, having like someone that is that size you're just looking down on him like, hey, down there, bud. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, what's up, Zelosi? Yeah, I know Leon's doing his birthday stream tonight, and I know Leon will be on Minority Report with a slew of other people tonight. I don't know if they're going to talk about it. Probably would be my guess. And I'll probably watch, but I'll be at the gym around that time. Now, I'll probably tune in for Leon. I'm going to tune in for Leon's stream, his birthday stream. I don't know if he's going to talk about it, but I'll be curious. We may talk about it Monday night on Masculine Mondays as well, but we'll see. We'll see. Let's get through the important stuff of the old Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and then we'll maybe do an after hours thing and kind of talk more about it openly. Let's see who else. Oh, all right. Let's see what Mr. J Drunk 3PO has said. 95 for Mr. J. I can't lie. I absolutely love this movie. No spoilers here, but the Punisher and Spidey dynamic was awesome. Tom Holland, best yet. Scenes from his point of view swinging through New York were incredible. I can't wait to see this again. Sin's Corner. I think it was just chatting with him on X. Let's see here. 80%. I've never been fully sold on Tom Holland's take on Spider-Man. I've never clicked with Zendaya's version of MJ. Yes, Michelle Jones. I agree. Not the real Mary Jane Watson. So did this one change my mind? Short answer, not fully, but I still really enjoyed it. No Way Home is still the number one for me, which is all what I was saying, which I disagree. Like, it may be someone's favorite, but I want to know why. Is it nostalgia that's pulling you back? Because we get Garfield, McGuire, Molina, Defoe, right? Like, or is it because the actual dynamics and the story and the acting is what makes sense? But also, it's Tom Holland being carried, and it's not a Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. It is a Spider-Man Avengers Universal movie. It's not a solo movie. Oh, let's see what Jeremy said. 70. Okay. Which is kind of where I'm at. Spider-Man Brandon is the best when this guy called Spider-Man is in the focus. Tom Holland is great as Spider-Man / Peter Parker. Obviously, as the audience, we are fully invested in his story and how he's dealing with the fallout from No Way Home. When it focuses on that, it's good, and I wanted more of that. Adding John Bernthal's Punisher to complement Spider-Man works very well because John Bernthal is always awesome. They have really good chemistry on screen. It's actually great, and I wanted more of that. I thought adding spoilers is another layer to this that really drags down the last third of the movie. I don't care about it, and it basically feels like a bad episode of Stranger Things. You'll know when you see it, of course, which I know what he's referring to. I've always liked Tom Holland in this role, but I've often felt like those solo movies he was in, except for No Way Home, which isn't really a solo film. Literally just said that. I recommend it for sure, but it's dragged down by similar issues as all the solo Tom Holland's Spider-Man. So with all that said, this is the best Holland solo Spider-Man movie that doesn't have Tobey Maguire in it. And you can't really say, I know it has the name on it, but like this isn't like No Way Home is not like a legitimate Spider-Man movie that has a solo Spider-Man in it. It has 3 Spider-Men in it. But, you know, I understand it with people like it, or it's their favorite. Not harping on you if that's the case. We'll look through a little bit more. See if I recognize anyone. I should probably type up something and throw it on here. Like, I don't know if I want to put a spoiler review on here, though. That's everything. All right, that's everything. You know what I'm saying? Gonna make a critical review tonight. Was too tired last night for playing Halo. Then been driving since 7 a.m. Yeah, I'm gonna throw a review. This would actually be my first review on Criticalist. I don't know if I'm gonna throw spoilers on there. I might. Maybe some. But we'll see. What's up, Power Focus? Toby was the first to do it. Tom is the best to do it. All right. Hey, you know, if that's the way you feel, Totally fine. I'm not going to say you're wrong, because I understand that people have different likes and different tastes as who they like as Spider-Man. As I've been saying, I think this is Tom Holland's best rendition of Spider-Man and of Peter Parker. And yes, Tobey was the first, but I do think that Tobey was a better Spider-Man. But that's just me. Later, Beans. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Like, I hope in this next movie that we get, probably in God knows how long, maybe 2028, 2029 at this point for the next Spider-Man movie, I really do hope we get, like, it truly feels like a standalone Spider-Man. Like, I want to see J. Jonah Jameson. Like, I want to see the Daily Bugle. I want to see him fighting like Venom, you know. I want to see him get pushed to the edge. The problem with him having the symbiote is, like, people recognizing him that he's changed. But if no one knows who he is, then how can anyone say that he's changed? Because you kind of see that in this movie when he's, like, evolving and the arachnid DNA starts to take over. He starts to act as if almost he would be, like, the symbiote was taking over. Because the police chief, DeWolf, whatever her name is like, you got to fix whatever's going on in here, Spider-Man. Like, you're acting a bit different, and if you keep acting this way, I can't protect you. You know, I'm gonna have to arrest you. Which, good luck at that point. But they're knocking Tobey. Yeah, no, I didn't see that as if you were, you know, knocking either one. And again, I think they've all added something in their renditions. You know, I mean, it's like I love the rendition of Spider-Man from the early Fox Saturday morning cartoons. You know, but it, you know, at the end of the day, I think this is going to be, like, again, this is going to be a film where people are going to be split on the decisions, and they're going to, you know, definitely feel like there's, you know, pros and cons about the effects that this movie is presenting because of the additional characters being involved in it. You know, we'll see what happens with Tom Holland post Doomsday, and I imagine he'll be in Secret Wars. If he doesn't have some sort of guest cameo thing in Doomsday. I don't think it's been confirmed yet, but he still might make an appearance, right? So, but that being said, we've been streaming for a little over 2 hours now. And my stomach is grumbling, but I appreciate you guys tuning in on a Friday afternoon. I know I don't get to do this all the time, but I don't know how much I'll talk about this movie on other streams. I'm sure there's gonna be plenty of other people talking about it, so I'll probably tune in and be watching from the chat. And we may talk more about this Monday night. We're going to talk about the original Spider-Man movie. And so maybe after we get through that criteria, we'll talk about this movie as like a after-hour special. So who else is streaming right now? Who we got? Let's see. Nerd Wars. See, Mo's Gaming. Looks like Erwin's talking Spider-Man. We'll go into Spider-Man. Or go into Erwin. So, we're going to go over to Nerd Wars. I think Erwin and Badger are probably chatting about this right now. But I hope everyone has a wonderful Friday. And be safe out there, wherever you're at. And have a great weekend, you know. If you end up seeing it this weekend, you haven't seen it yet, come back, hit me up, tune into a future stream. We'll talk about it. And I'll see you all later. Cheers. Have a